stitches. In this video, we will be looking at the Bernina 930. As you learn to change the needle, you will see some machines that are not a Bernina 930, but the information is generic and will apply to your machine. We are working near the needle today. Let's be safe. Turn the machine off or unplug it. To dispose of needles, we do not just throw them in the trash where they can poke someone through the plastic bag. We can wrap them in a paper towel before throwing them away. I've made a little container to dispose of mine. I put duct tape around the lid of this can, and then I make a slit in the top so that I can dispose of my needles this way. And then I store this away from little children so that they can't get into it. Your sewing machine needle is part of what makes great stitches. I change the needle often on my machine. How can you tell if you need to change your needle? The following photos will tell you. The yellow arrow is pointing to a needle with a burr or hook on the pointed end of the needle. This can cause bad stitches, broken threads, and damaged fabric. You will need to change the needle if your needle is like this. Sometimes needles break and have to be replaced. If your needle breaks, try to find all the pieces and properly dispose of them. We will discuss how to prevent breaking needles in our next lesson when we sew on fabric. I often start sewing by feeling the back of the needle. If it has a burr or a hook on it, or if it feels rough like sandpaper, I know it's time to change the needle. If my top thread keeps breaking, or if the tension on my stitches look horrible, or the machine is skipping stitches like the top right photo, I first rethread the machine. If I still have this problem, I put in a new needle. Sometimes a bent, a burred, or a damaged needle can cause these problems. If I hear a crunching or a punching sound as the needle goes into the fabric for each stitch, then I know the point of the needle has become dull and I need to change the needle. Eventually you will be able to hear it when the needle is dull. You need to change the needle about every 6 to 8 hours of sewing. Check the needle often. A new needle makes better stitches. Let's look closely at this huge model of a sewing machine needle. At the top of this needle, where the needle goes into the sewing machine, it's rounded. This is the front of the needle. The front of the needle has a groove that runs down to the hole or the eye of the needle. This is where the thread lies. I turn the needle over, and this is the back of the needle. The back of the needle has a flat side at the top instead of a round side. This photo shows the flat side of the needle and the round side of the needle at the top of the shaft. Here's an important stitch note to help reinforce this. A needle that is bent, dull, rough, or has a burr on the end can cause bad stitches. Change the needle every 6 to 8 hours or when you see or feel or hear problems. To take the needle out of the machine, you will have to turn the needle screw. Your machine's needle screw may look similar to one of these. For most machines, you can just use your fingers to loosen the screw. Some machines have a special screwdriver like these photos to loosen the needle screw and remove the needle. To take out the old needle in this machine, I put the presser foot down. I put the needle in its top position, and then I'm going to hold the needle with my left hand, and I'm going to undo the screw by turning it towards me, turning the top of it towards me, and till the needle comes out. I don't want to unscrew this so much that the screw falls out, and I want to make sure I hold on to the needle so that it doesn't fall into the machine. I'm going to place the old needle on a plate or a bowl, and I'm going to take a new needle out of this package here. For this brand, I need to pull this clear plastic part in the front down, and then this part folds back a little. You don't want to fold it back too much or it'll break. And then I can take out a new needle, and then I'm going to put those back into my plate. And then to put this in, I want the flat side of my needle facing the back of my machine. I'm going to put it in that little hole with my left hand, and I'm going to turn the screw until it's tight. And I'm going to make sure that it's pushed up all the way into the machine. If the needle is not into the hole all the way, your machine will not work. I will make another longer video on needles with a lot more information in a later lesson. Your mentor will choose the correct needle to sew your first quilt. There are still a couple more things you need to know about needles that affect your stitches. The yellow arrow on the left side of the photo is pointing to the needle type, which is called universal. And the bottom right arrow is pointing to the needle size, which is 80-12. These two needles help you understand size. You can see the groove down the front of these two needles. The needle on the left is a size 110. See how thick the shaft is? The eye and groove are also large. The needle on the right is a size 60 needle. The shaft and eye are much smaller. The groove is tiny. Look at the thickness and size of the thread in each needle. This thick thread would have a hard time going into the little size 60 needle. The thickness of the shaft is called the size. The groove on the needle where the thread lies and the eye of the needle get bigger as the size of the needle goes up. Thicker threads need larger size needles. Needle style or needle type is how the point of the needle is shaped. The eye of the needle and the cutout behind the eye are also shaped differently for different types of needles. The style or type may be called stretch needle for sewing stretchy fabrics, or leather needle for sewing leather, or embroidery needle for going really fast in embroidery work. They are shaped to best work with different fabrics, different threads, and with different kinds of sewing. I will use a universal type needle size 80-12. It works well with the thread I'm going to use. The important concept here is when a thread is too big or too small for a needle, it can cause bad stitches and can cause thread to shred. The wrong type of needle for your fabric can also cause bad stitches and bad tension. Here are some gadgets you can buy that pull a loop of thread to the back of the needle, similar to the ones built into some machines. For this threader, 1. Lay the thread across the slit in the white part of the threader. 2. Lay the threader at the top of the groove on the front of the needle and slide it down the groove until it gets to the needle's eye. In photo 3, it shows pushing the needle threader into the eye. On number 4, you pull the threader out. It leaves a loop of your thread behind the eye. Hold on to the loop and pull it towards the back of the machine until the tail of the thread comes out. In photo 5, it shows the other end of this needle threader has a hole in it that you can use to put the needle in when you're putting it in and out of the hole. We just learned about needles in general. Your machine needs a special screwdriver to remove the needle. It looks like this. Put the screwdriver in the hole on the needle screw right here until it clicks in there. And then you're going to hold onto the needle with your left hand and you're going to turn the screw towards you, and that will take out your needle. And then to put it back in, the flat side goes towards the back, and put it in all the way, holding it with your left hand, and turn the screwdriver to the back. Every sewing machine gets lint inside from thread and fabric. It needs to be cleaned regularly. Many experts advise cleaning the machine every time the bobbin runs out. If you find your stitches are not good, cleaning your machine usually makes them better. Clean the dust off the outside of the machine with a soft cloth. The machine is turned off or unplugged. I've removed the needle and the presser foot. I've also removed the top thread. A little lint brush came with your machine. You will need it or some other soft lint brush to clean the machine. I'm going to lower the needle a little bit and I'm going to clean the lint off the needle bar with a brush or a soft cloth. And as you're cleaning it, you're going to have to take the little fuzzies off of the brush every once in a while. Clean all the lint off of there. And then I'm going to put the needle back to its highest position. Let's remove the throat plate. Open this cover, the bobbin area. Then you're going to put your finger right here, just under the throat plate, right here. And I'm going to push that, and you will see that it pops up the throat plate. And as I take this throat plate off, I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to clean off the back of the stitch plate, which is this round silver part. And then I'm going to set that aside. And you can see that there's a lot of lint and threads up in this feed dog area. We're going to clean that out in a minute. Here's a close-up of the button that you push with your finger to remove the throat plate. It's kind of hard to see. And here it is with the throat plate off. You can see it a little bit better. Remove the bobbin case. I should make sure that the needle bar is in the highest position. It is. And I'm going to have to take off this thing right here, which is called the race cover. And to drop this race cover, I push this button right here. So I push that, and this whole thing swings down, this race cover. Here's a close-up of the release button that you push to open the race cover. Now you can see the hook. This is the hook. I'm going to pull it out by putting my hands on this post that's in the middle, and I pull it straight out. And there you go. Now I have all the parts out, and I can clean the lint. Here's a photo of the hook taken out of the machine. So we're going to start cleaning in the feed dog area, starting at the top and working down. And I'm just going to pull this lint out, put it on my plate or in the trash. I'm going to clean really well between all these feed dog and all this area. I do not want to push backwards and have all the lint fall down into the back of the machine. You just want it to come forward. Make sure all the lint is off of there. Don't use anything sharp to pull out the lint or the threads. Scratching parts of the machine with a metal tool or a pin can cause your threads to break. Clean all the lint. Now let's clean the hook area. So I'm just going to push all the lint towards the front, go back into these corners, make sure I get all the lint out of my hook area. I'm going to get the lint off of this race cover. And I'm going to open it up a little bit and even go in between these two pieces here, the metal part and the plastic part. Make sure I get all the lint off there. And then I'm going to also even clean the lint off the door. I pick up the shuttle hook and I brush out the inside and the outside of this hook. Then I'm going to run my fingers across that hook, and that hook, and make sure that there's no scratches or dents. If there is, then I'm going to take it to my Bernina dealer and have them buff it smooth so that it doesn't cause threads to break. Do not use canned air on your machine. You can, however, use a special vacuum or mini vacuum attachment. Many of the mini vacuums are made to clean electronics and keyboards. It's important to take your sewing machine for tune-ups, just like a car. I take my machine in once a year. The technician can make fine-tuning adjustments that I cannot. Your machine also needs oil. Do not put oil in the machine if your machine is dirty. Make sure that you clean the lint out first. I'm going to put 2 or 3 drops of oil right here at the bottom of this flat area right here. My machine begins to make horrible clanking noises if I have neglected to oil it. Use only sewing machine oil in your machine. Do not use any other kind of oil. If your machine is old and the oil is very yellow, then you probably need to buy a new container of sewing machine oil. It is recommended that you oil your sewing machine after every other bobbin runs out. Now it's time to put all the pieces back together. I'm going to place a spool of thread under the front of my machine, right there, and that tips it back just a little bit. You don't want it to tip so much that it's going to fall over. The hook stays in better if it's tipped. First I turn the hand wheel to put this half of this moon shape like this so that it's on the left side with the tips at the top and the bottom. Now I'm going to take the shuttle hook, which is also half of a moon shape, and I'm going to put it in to form the whole moon. So I've made sure that's flat, and now I'm going to close the race cover, and I'm going to push it on the side where the button is, so on this left side, and I'm just going to push. Sometimes you can hear it click. Now mine is not going in well, so I'm going to pull it back down, and I'm going to make sure that this is in there straight and flat. It probably wasn't flat enough. I'm just going to push right there, and you could hear it click. Sometimes it doesn't make that clicking sound. Now I'm going to take my throat plate, and on the throat plate is a little tab that extends right here. I put this tab under the right side of the throat of the machine, and on the left side I'm going to push down hard, and then it's back in place. And here's a close-up of the hook. The left side of what I call the moon stays in the machine. The right side of the moon, called the hook, is the part that you take out when you're cleaning. When all of the pieces are back in place, I rock the hand wheel back and forth to make sure it is working well. Then I run the machine without thread for a few seconds to get all the oil moving around. I thread the machine and I sew a few stitches on a scrap of fabric to make sure that no oil will get on my project. And our last stitch note says, lint and dust inside your feed dog and bobbin area can cause bad stitches and thread jams. Clean out lint after every bobbin change. Oil the machine after every other bobbin change and when you hear or feel it needs it. We've had another lesson with a lot of information. You will eventually be able to hear and feel when your machine needs to be cleaned and oiled. For your homework, show your mentor that you can do the following things. 1. Remove the needle from the sewing machine. Replace the needle with the same needle or with a new one. Properly dispose of the old needle. 2. Remove the throat plate and the bobbin case. Swing open the race cover. Take out the hook. Clean all lint and thread from these areas and off all the pieces. Oil the machine. 3. Put all the pieces back together correctly. 4. Point out the needle size and the needle type on a package of needles. In our next lesson, we will sew on another practice worksheet and sew on some fabric squares. We will learn what a seam is and how to sew using the guidelines on your stitch plate. See you next time. And here's a note to the mentor. In our next lesson, we will use the machine with thread. Print out the worksheet posted underneath the video link for Lesson 10, or look at the handout and draw a similar paper. You will need the following: 6 squares or rectangles of fabric at least 3 inches by 3 inches, 2 long pieces of fabric at least 12 inches long and at least 2 inches wide, pins and small scissors. Thank you for helping someone learn to sew.